There's not a lot of black people in Singapore. There is not a lot of black people here. There's you're not going to be able to get different perspectives unless you put yourself in uncomfortable situations. When you travel, you're putting yourself in a place where you have to compromise. You have no choice. You're a guest in another country or city, and you have to compromise on your norms and really embrace the culture that you're living in or visiting. So
welcome to the Melanated Files. In this series we highlight and share the stories of black people from across the globe. Remember to subscribe to this channel for weekly videos and also follow us on social media for regular updates. Let's get into the interview.
I don't know why, but I can't seem to get you off my mind. And I know it's true, and I'll say this to you, I want you back. There's something inside, yeah, there's something inside that brings me back to you, yeah. No, I can't hide it, no, I can't hide it anymore. Something inside, something inside.
So my name's Tobias Azizah. I'm from the UK. Currently living in Singapore. Been here for a year and a half. I work as a food and beverage manager for an American company. I cover the Asia Pacific region, so I'm traveling a bit. But yeah, I'm living here in Singapore. So I mean, the opportunity came up for work really. So I was doing a similar role based in London, across Europe, and the opportunity came up. I wanted to travel, I wanted to see this side of the world. It was a temporary trip, so I'm here for 2 years, two years and a bit, so got about another year left here. And you know, I just thought it was going to be a good place. To be honest, I didn't know much about it when I came here. You know, the best thing I knew was you know, Singapore fried rice, which I found out isn't really a thing. But you know, yeah, to be honest, there was no one factor drawing me to Singapore. It was just really a work thing. In my role, so I manage the amenities, the perks of an office culinary department. So that's the restaurants, the little mini kitchens, micro pantries, coffee shops, etc. for the office environment. So the work that I do, the food and beverage work I do, it's not open to the general public usually. It's as a benefit to the employees. So that means I'm looking at the health balance. It's not a restaurant that's on the high street, so it's not somewhere that someone will go and pick to eat at. It's where a group of employees are eating 5 days a week, 3 times a day. So we have to look at the health balance, how they snack, the times of the day that people snack. We actually get feedback and really implement that feedback, nutritional aspect. So there's a lot there, and it's been interesting because Singapore is a big food place. You know, one of their main, if you ask any Singaporean, you know, what there is to do in Singapore, they're going to talk about food. And I found that side of it, you know, really interesting. It's one of the reasons I like being here, because I think I've learned a lot about Asian food here. If I thought I knew Asian food before, you know, I didn't know anything. So now I think I know a lot more about Asian food. So it's interesting. It's an interesting question because, so me personally, I'm actually vegan, and being vegan in Asia it's not easy. Singapore is a very cosmopolitan place. I think it's a bit easier here than it would be in a lot of other places in Southeast Asia. But in terms of my favorite food here, firstly, it's the fruit. The fruit game here is strong. You know, a lot of fresh fruit. Back in the UK would be like triple the price, so it's like soursop juices and, you know, mangosteen and, you know, dragon fruit, etc. But in terms of hot dish, I like spice, so a lot of the Szechuan rice or noodles, mushrooms. There's a mushroom here called like lion's mane, or like some people call it monkey head mushroom, or what else do they call it? Yeah, I mean, but it's really dense, and I think a lot of people compare it to meat. And you know, some of the restaurants and hawker centers make some really cool dishes out of these things. So So yeah, I haven't really got one favorite dish, but that's where I am. I mean, in the year and a half I've been here, I've managed to travel to a lot of places, and I think one of the main reasons I came here is because I hadn't explored this side of the world, and I knew it was going to be an amazing experience, kind of trying to get to a lot of these places. Like, I found myself in places that I would not have gone to if I stayed in London. You know, it just wasn't on my bucket list. So I managed to get around to a lot of places, and Singapore have made it convenient and quite cheap to get to a lot of places. And the bucket list items like Bali or like, you know, Phuket. But also get into places in East Asia and North Asia, like, you know, Korea and Japan, China, etc. And actually a few trips to India. So, you know, really getting to understand the dynamics of what makes up Singapore, what makes up Asia. You know, I think I've learned some of the most I've learned in my life, kind of in the last year and a half being in Asia, just broadening my perspective on the world. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big advocate for travel. You know, you're not going to be able to get different perspectives unless you put yourself in uncomfortable situations. When you travel, you're putting yourself in a place where you have to compromise. You have no choice. You're a guest in another country or city, and you have to compromise on your norms and really embrace the culture that you're living in or visiting. So whether it is visiting certain temples and having to take off your shoes, things as simple as that, to eating certain local foods, and you know, where the attitude of simple things like jaywalking and you know, other things like how you greet people, or what words to say, what words not to say. So I mean, you're not going to get that perspective without travel. You know, I think a lot of people that do travel, or no, not even that do travel, a lot of media that people consume, they get an impression of a culture or a country from that, and then they will base their travel on that, good and bad. But I think that the way you're going to experience that country the best is by visiting there yourself, because I think everyone's experience is different. So when your friend goes and visits your country and it comes back and tells you about their experience, and if they had a bad experience, that country is then stripped off of your bucket list, but that was their experience. And I think if you go and visit that country, then you know, you can have a totally different experience, and you could be missing out on something special. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for travel. I think coming from so firstly, I think the public transport is amazing. I think like London, the public transport in London specifically, it's all right, but you know, the delays, the cleanliness, you know, I think that the public transport is one of the big factors. But I think that boils down to the broader picture of convenience. I think things are just a bit more structured here, and I appreciate that. I like to plan. I think that's the type of character that I am, and so yeah, I always boil it down to convenience.
What do you like the least?
It's a double-edged sword, because I would actually say convenience is also a factor that I don't like. Too much convenience and too much structure, because I don't think there's enough room for expressiveness as well. So all those things are structured, and I get to like, I can plan, I know what the day is going to be like, even down to the weather. You know, it doesn't change much. You know, things don't change much here. That can get boring after a while and get a bit repetitive. You need to be able to, you know, lash out a bit and do things that are a bit different. And I think in Singapore that's hard to do. I think a lot of people that do that, they travel to get that experience, you know, to be able to be a different side to themselves, and they kind of resort back into their bubble and their comfort zone back in Singapore. A black experience been like in Singapore. It's I would say it's actually been pretty good so far. I don't know, it's there's been moments that, you know, I would question if someone is being a bit too biased, stereotypical, prejudiced, or to a further extent racist. But I don't think I've experienced racism here in the same way I would have experienced racism in the UK. I think Singapore in general is a very safe place, and I think a lot of the racism or prejudice or biases, I would say, are more ignorance. Ignorance to people not engaging with a black person before, not really knowing how to engage. And I kind of encourage a lot of the Singaporean friends that I have to ask me questions, you know, to the same way I'm in their country and learning about Singaporean culture. It's nice for them to give them the opportunity to learn about you know, black culture, you know, at least from the black British perspective. So my black experience have been pretty good. There's not a lot of black people in Singapore. There is not a lot of black people here. There's there's a community. I was lucky enough to be plugged into the community pretty early when I got here. When making the trip over here, I was sure that I needed a community to be out here for 2 years. So I actually actively went on social media and kind of, looked at what was going on. And there's a community. There's a big like Black French community, African American community here. There's Black British people. There's people from Africa and the Caribbean. Not a lot, but enough for you not to know everyone, which is good. And Singapore's a small country, so. So yeah, there's enough of a community for me to be out here, but there's definitely not a lot here, not a lot of us. So there was one time I was walking through one of the malls, one of the big malls, and I was trying to get back into my fitness, as you do. You fall off, you get back on, and I was doing some shopping. I think I needed some new gear, and I went into this sports store, and one of the, I think the cashier, no, it was one of the kind of clerks that was walking around, must have said to me, oh, where am I from? Africa? I'm like, sometimes I would answer, I'll say originally, just to like kind of, to just for the sake of it, and they get a bit confused. But yeah, no, I said no, I'm from the UK, and they said, oh, you buying a basketball? Like they were kind of gearing me to the directions of certain things like basketballs, and and said, oh no, you people are good at sports, and it's like that was a bit like, yeah. Some of us are good, some of us are not so good, So yeah, that was funny. That was a funny experience. But to be honest, a lot of the experiences I've had, I've been assuming that I'm African. I think it's down to a way a lot of Singaporeans may see race. They look at you, they look at your skin, they look at your skin tone, and they know that people with that skin tone come from Africa. So they ask if you're African, and I think sometimes that assumption is made. Not in a biased or negative way. It's kind of just you look African, yeah. But black people are not just from Africa originally, yeah. But they're not just from they're not just residents or citizens of Africa. So that was an interesting one. Yeah, I think curiosity. If I was to say one word, is curiosity. Is the general attitude. Sometimes it's too intrusive, the curiosity, and sometimes it's more passive. So example of it being too intrusive, I went to one of the carnival events. So they say carnival, but being my heritage being Caribbean, our carnival is different from the carnival that they have here. I think it's more the US term carnival, so more like a fun fair, as we call it in the UK. And there was lots of people from lots of different parts of the world, and I had some guy come up to me with my wife and a few other people, and someone just came up to me and just literally grabbed me and got their phone out, take a picture, and it was like, wow, like that. I was so shocked that happened in Singapore, because I've had that in a few places that I've traveled to, but Singapore, I think they see enough of us for it not to be that intrusive. So that was an eye opener for me. That was an interesting one. So that's a funny thing. The dark people, like, I thought that it was an Indian guy that actually grabbed me and took a picture with me, which is funny, because Singapore's very diverse. So it's made up of mostly Malaysian, Chinese, Indonesian, but there's sub-communities. There's Little India, there's Arab Street, there's lots of different places that you can go and find these little sub-communities. And I've seen a lot of dark-skinned Indian people here, but so I was quite shocked when Indian people were like really kind of like interested in my skin tone and really looking at me like, wow. It actually happened a lot more when I went to India, so that was that was a different experience. But yeah, so I mean, I get it. It's quite shocking. It was quite shocking for me. It took me a while. I asked a lot of people from the black community, where do they go to do their hair? There are some people from the black community that actually do hair. So most of the guys specifically go to these people. They're confident. A lot of them are American, and they know how to do hair. I mean, they understand our hair. They have our hair. But then there are some people that it's not convenient. You need someone local, and so they will try and error. So you go to one person. I've got a guy that's quite local, about a 5-minute train ride, and yeah, I've had to coach him into how he does my hair. So I went there first, and it was this older guy, a Malaysian guy, and he was a bit nervous, but he did it, and it was okay. And I went back, and he got better, and then like he started to fall off after a while, and I was like, and then one of his one of the other barbers in that barber shop started to do it, a younger guy, and he actually, I think he gets it a bit more. Yeah, so now I'm okay. I'm a bit more comfortable with him. I don't think it's as good as in the UK, but it's possible, and I can live with it. So yeah. No, there's no specifically black. Well, no, as in an establishment, there's no black establishment barbers that I know of, but there are people that have set up shop like in their home that people will go to and get a trim. The most profound difference between London and Singapore, I would say, firstly, is the cleanliness of the general country. Obviously, I'm comparing a country to a city, but just people take care of the environment. They're taking care of the streets. You're walking down the street, people aren't really littering just for the sake of littering, and I think that there's a bit more value placed on the street, on the land there, in terms of looking after it, than there is placed in London. I think some of the other profound differences that I think, going back to the cleanliness, is they have a big street food hawker centre culture here, and I can't even imagine the waste that will come out of that in London. If something was like that in London, I don't think it would really work. I think that's very much a Singapore thing. So the street food culture, fast food kind of is obviously working in food. I think that's something I've noticed a lot. The fast food culture, and fast food here is really the hawker centers. You have McDonald's and KFC and all of those places as well, but most people, a lot of the locals, go to hawker centers. You can get things for pretty cheap, and that is fast food. So I think the fast food is a lot healthy in that perspective. It's not amazingly healthy, but you can get an honest hot meal without breaking the bank here, and it doesn't need to be from one of these big franchises. So I think that's one of the big differences as well with the people. I think that there's a bit more, there's less social interaction. I think you have to really work for it if you want to engage with locals, whereas I think in London, in some environments, you can really go up to someone and start a conversation, and but that doesn't really happen here. So I think building a social network is harder here than it is in London. What do they do really well? I mean, I'm speaking as a guest in Singapore, so I mean, they've positioned themselves very well from a business perspective. I think they focus, I don't know if it's good or bad, they focus a lot on how the world sees them, and the marketing about your country is good, but I think that they've managed to get themselves to a place where the country perceives them as being in a pretty good place, but also the people, from my perspective, they embrace the culture in the country. They're really proud of Singapore, the majority. Infrastructure wise, I think Singapore does amazing. I think the architecture is amazing. Like I said before, the public transport is amazing. I think that they've managed to build an infrastructure that works, and I don't know what sacrifices they had to make to get there, but I think that building into the architecture is one point I'll touch on, because they've managed to build the greenery into the cities, which I think that you go to places like New York or London or and is very built up. There's no green really, like Central Park or like Hyde Park in London and whatnot, but you forget that nature is there as well, and you need to really integrate things. And I think when you take out nature and take out what's usually there, it can get a bit stale, a bit sterile, and it's not. I don't think that's 100% good for people. Ooh, I think coming here has been a pretty big deal, to be honest. Like I hadn't gone to Singapore before I arrived here, and I'm a bit of a risk taker in that regard. But I think that because of what I've gained from coming here, I think that's made this one of my proudest accomplishments, because I chase knowledge. I'm trying to learn. I don't understand. I don't know everything, and I'm just trying to learn. So I think in any period of time, I've learned some of the most valuable information that I've learned to date. So that's been one of my most proudest accomplishments, I would say. Best life advice. It'll probably be that someone's opinion about you has nothing to do with you. It's all about them. It's how they've perceived you. It's what they've taken from what you've given to them. And although it's good and sometimes can be constructive feedback, it might not represent you. So take all of that feedback with a pinch of salt. So I think that's probably one of the best life advice that I've heard. Change one thing in the world, I think it'll be people's attitude towards change. Because people are not good with change. So like I was saying earlier, I think traveling has given me perspective, and I embrace change a bit better, I think, than I used to. And I think that's really helped me evolve as a person. So I think if people change their attitude towards change, ultimately the world will be a better place as part of the ripple effect. One person. So I'm a bit of a reggae fan, to be honest. So I would say my man Chronix, is a good one. Because I feel like he's got a young guy, but he's got some insight into things. I like his vibe. I don't know, like, I'm a family man, so that's one person. So what I mean? Like, okay, I'll leave it there. One of my early, as far back as I can remember. So I was brought up in the UK. I was born in the UK, but I spent a lot of time in Jamaica when I was younger. So my background is Jamaican, by heritage, but I'm a British citizen. So I think when I was younger in Jamaica, I remember being with some of my cousins and that in the countryside, and just playing some game or running around. And I remember running in the road. We had to go to the shop, and the shop's like 2 miles out, and we got to walk to the shop, me and one of my older brothers. And I remember us having a race in the road, and then if anyone knows about the Jamaica traffic, some car must have just come up behind us and was like beep 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 beep, and I must have twisted my ankle whilst trying to get out of the road, and just remember diving to the left, and this car just was not stopping, and I just thinking to myself, wow, if I did not dive out of that road, that could have been me. So it's not the best memory, but like obviously some of the most dramatic and traumatic memories are the ones you remember. So that's one of the earliest ones there. I think besides that, it's just really pressuring my mum for some roller skates for Christmas. Is one of my other earliest memories. But yeah, that's one positive to balance out the negative. So yeah, what's the biggest lesson I learned in life? I would say to really work out what's worth your energy and what's not worth your energy. I think managing energy is important. So I think that's one thing I've learned. I mean, people talk about managing time, but you can have all the time but no energy. If you burn out of energy, you can't do nothing. I think managing your energy is important. Yeah, and I think that goes back to it's funny because it goes back to living in Asia, because with the ignorance sometimes, being growing up in the UK or, in the US or wherever, you face a lot of challenges as a black man. And I think challenging those things, everything, microaggressions, racism, biases, it's energy. So you pick your battles. And I think it's equally the same out here. You're in a different environment that you're not used to. So it takes a lot of energy just to be here until you get used to things. It takes less energy day by day, but managing your energy is important. Yeah, so that's one of my biggest lessons. I'll give you better than 15 seconds. Just no rain, no flowers. Quote, I can't remember where I got that from, probably some Instagram post somewhere, but just basically meaning that you need to go through some stuff to reap the benefits. So no rain, no flowers. Boom. And the other one I heard, and this wasn't even from a quote, I think this is from a song. I don't remember what song, but if it's plated in gold, it won't grow. So that meaning that it can look shiny, it could look nice, it could you could have all this and that, but you're not going to grow. You need to come out of your comfort zone, be a bit more uncomfortable. I think the gold being a metaphor for comfort, really. That's how I take that, to being growing, being outside of that box, outside of your comfort zone, and really kind of taking on life in that sense. So yeah.
What's your favorite place in Singapore?
There's a few. I mean, most people, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to think. There's so many. I go to most of it.
Say a couple of your, or a few things.
A few things that people should do. I think the light show at Bayfront, the Marina Bay Sands one, not the super cheese. I think that one's overrated. The other one, I like the other one better. The water, like I can't remember what it's called, Spectra or something like that. So that one's cool. I think people should visit Sentosa. It's a bit expensive, but I mean, there's other things you can do. I think experience the food, local food. If you like seafood, if you haven't got a lot of time and you're visiting Asia and you're in Singapore, I think it's a good opportunity to try a lot of Asian foods. It might not be as authentic if you go to Japan and have food in Japan, but it'll be closer. Yeah, so I mean, try Indian food here, try local food, the mix between Chinese, Malaysian, and Indonesian, the nasi goreng and nasi lemak, durian. I think that they call it king of the fruit. I personally don't like it. Yeah, but if you're coming here, you should try it. You know, make your own decision on that. But yeah, the food. A common misconception about Singapore, which I think even expats or visitors to Singapore still have been in Singapore, is that everything is perfect. You know, it's very, like I said, Singapore are good at marketing themselves. You know, things on the outside look great, and it is pretty cool living here. But there are people do struggle here. I don't think you can really be here without a job. It can get expensive. So I think that's a common misconception. Yeah, I would say that's a common misconception, that things are not perfect here. I think that Singapore, there's prejudice in Singapore. Singapore is quite a mix between a lot of Asian countries, and there's a lot, like I said, a lot of sub-communities here, and I see the disparity between the way it's majority Chinese, first of all, yeah. And I can see how some of the other communities are treated, you know, which is not always as fair as the bigger demographic of Singapore. So I would say there's some prejudice in that, probably, you know, probably needs a shout out or two. Yeah. So advice for people black people that are coming here is find a good barber. Get plugged into the black community early. You're gonna need it. There's not a lot of us out here, but you know, it is enough of us. I would say get your passport ready. You know, travel while you're here, because there's some amazing, beautiful places to see that are like an hour away. There are some nice places to see in Singapore itself. I think that, you know, the greenery, the architecture, you can do hikes. You can, you know, you can be fancy if you want to be fancy. You can, you know, be raw and rural and go out to, you know, other little islands. So you can do stuff here. So yeah, I think that's it. Biggest risk I've taken so far. It probably is not a risk by technical standards, but probably skydiving, man. I don't know, like I did skydiving, and like that's scary, man. Sitting on the edge of a plane I don't know. We're not designed to sit on the edge of a plane. Like, how was that? It was crazy. It was an amazing experience. Though I don't regret. I'll do it again. Like, even though it was a risk by my standards. Like, yeah, it's amazing, because I don't think anything compares to that feeling of that moment where there is no gravity. You've jumped, and then there's like, just before you start falling, it's kind of like there's no gravity. You're just there, and like everything's blue. The horizon is like some next angle, I don't even know, and it's just a beautiful experience, the view, and then you start falling, and then you're just in awe, and seeing clouds beneath you is an experience not a lot of people get to experience. And I think that as you're falling towards those clouds, it looks solid, look like you're gonna hit the cloud, and then you just snap, and then it just turns gray, just blue, gray as you're falling through clouds. And I think that, you know, that was just an amazing experience. I don't know what it's done for my life, but it was just something that I think, although I would say it was one of the risky things that I did, even though I don't think it's a risk by technical terms, it's something that was really beautiful, and I'll do it again. They're both equal. I don't even know which feeling was better or worse. I think that moment where there's no gravity, I had to just reflect on after, because that happened too fast. Yeah, and but even the free fall it happens super fast as well. So I don't know which feeling was better, but it's great that you get both in one. So yeah, I'm just upset I didn't record it. I didn't get it recorded. It was expensive. I was just like, nah, I'm not paying for that. Yeah. So yeah, I think my secret superpower is I know how to engage with different people. I think talking to different people at different levels is important. You know, just being able to adapt what you say and compromises. You know, I do that a lot. I assess a situation and then kind of just adjust. I think that's been useful for me. All right, so I'm not even that big on my personal social media. Like, I don't really do it that much, but Tobias Azizah, Tobias Azizah. It's my handle, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to share your story or have us visit your region, send us a message on any of our social media platforms or via our website.
That's good.